Season 2 of MuniCast is brought to you by SaskTel's Innovation and Collaboration Team. SaskTel can help you sort through the noise to create solutions that add value quickly. Whether it's reducing your environmental footprint, driving investment, community development, or just saving money, contact your SaskTel account manager to find out more. Welcome back to Season 2 of MuniCast, the municipal podcast that tackles municipal leadership and how you can work with your federal partners. On today's episode, we're very excited to be sitting down with President Joanne Vanderheyden of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities to discuss how your community can be working closely with FCM. Welcome, President Vanderheyden. It's a pleasure to have you on our podcast.
Thank you very much, Sean. It's a pleasure to be here.
Municipal politicians often think of their role as solely at the local level, but if this was the case, we wouldn't have a Federation of Canadian Municipalities. I think a good way to start off today's interview is to ask, what do you see as the role of FCM?
Well, that's a great way to start, Sean. The Federation of Canadian Municipalities really is the national voice of municipal government. It unites more than 2,000 local governments, coast to coast to coast. It represents over 90% of Canadians that live in Canada's cities, rural communities, and northern communities. So municipal leaders from across the country assemble every year to set FCM policy on key issues, and FCM advocates for municipalities to be sure that their citizens' needs are reflected in federal policies and programs, which is essential for us. And as the national voice of local government, FCM actively moves national conversations forward with support from a team of professionals. We are in constant contact with the federal officials, from policy specialists to opposition parties to the Prime Minister, and with stakeholders in the public sector, industry, and civil society. And you can see where that is essential for us to get our work done. We also conduct research and analysis that support board priorities, drives advocacy positions, and shapes capacity building tools for municipalities. And that can be from housing to public safety to the state of Canada's infrastructure. Successive governments have really relied on FCM's policy work, and I can say that our subject matter experts are recognized leaders in their fields, from budget consultants to committee hearings, and many are familiar faces on the Hill as we speak. As frontline governments, municipalities deliver cost-effective solutions directly in the places where Canadians live, work, and raise their families. These are places where many of our biggest national challenges can be tackled most directly, from creating jobs to ending homelessness to achieving net zero emissions. And I can tell you, FCM is a delivery force in its own right. Our federal funded programs are driving results on the ground nationwide, and municipalities turn shared federal municipal aspirations into action on the ground. We're renewing job creating infrastructure, we're retrofitting buildings to cut emissions, we're making this country more resilient to extreme weather, and building the next generation of sustainable public transit. So that, in a nutshell, is the role of FCM.
Well, that's fantastic. And it's really great to see kind of the wide breadth that FCM brings to the municipal world and really kind of works to help facilitate good federal engagement on a nationwide level. Following up on that, many local leaders spend their entire career focusing on how they can work with their regional and provincial partners. This leaves a lot of missed opportunities to work at the table with FCM. So how can Saskatchewan municipal councillors and mayors benefit specifically from engaging in FCM programs?
Another excellent question. And you have an amazing province there. And we have a number of programs, and I kind of touched on that earlier. Several programs are available to municipalities from Saskatchewan and elsewhere. One is the Green Municipal Fund. We call that the GMF, and that's a great example. It has brought life to some 1,750 sustainable initiatives and delivered more than $1 billion to communities of all sizes. GMF-backed projects have reduced 2.75 million tons of emissions. That's the equivalent of taking 840,000 cars off the road. We also have Municipal Asset Management Program and our Municipalities for Climate Innovation Program. And that's helping communities optimize infrastructure and climate adaptation planning to make every dollar go further. So this is just some of the programs that we have that Saskatchewan municipal leaders and mayors can benefit from.
Thank you for highlighting those. I know one of them that is really exciting to our members is that Green Municipal Fund, something that we talk about year after year at our convention. And it really excites our members to hear kind of what they can be doing on an individual local level to offset climate emissions.
And I can tell you that the municipalities that have applied, their ingenuity and innovation has been outstanding. So these projects are just flying out the door, and communities are doing an excellent job using those dollars.
So I want to talk about the community that you come from. You come from the Municipality of Strathroy-Caradoc in Southwest Ontario, of approximately 20,000 people. I think the important thing for me that I can glean from that is that you likely share many of the same priorities and same challenges as several of our mid-sized and larger municipalities here in Saskatchewan. So what are some of the key lessons that you've learned, President Vanderheyden, over your term as president of FCM, both on a federal level, but also as an individual municipal leader?
You're absolutely right. I come from a small community. It's a large rural area, very agriculture rich. We have a lot of industry here, and yet we are just 22,000 strong. So I can relate to a lot of our smaller communities. We don't all come from big cities, but I can tell you what I've learned over the last little while. We have a very diverse board made up of brilliant community leaders, and they're from coast to coast to coast, from every size community. Our staff are professional, knowledgeable, and what I've really see is united, we can accomplish a great deal. Municipalities are truly in a unique position to not only be the voice of local government, but to be the leaders in driving advocacy and finding solutions to national challenges. And it doesn't matter who I speak to that's on the board, they are just committed to doing what's right for our communities. And when I speak to the different orders of government, everyone understands the importance of gathering together, uniting to make things work out for this country that we live in.
So I just want to follow up on that. Working with the federal government as well as local leaders from all across Canada has to be a huge challenge. How do you balance the diverse voices when it comes to managing individuals and leaders coming from all provinces, including Saskatchewan, Manitoba, BC, Alberta, who many face very different challenges, but also face many similar challenges at the same time?
Well, that's a great question, and you're absolutely right. We are a very unique country. We all come from different parts of the country that have different needs, and we need to partner together. And local governments increasingly rely on partnerships with other orders of government to meet what I would call their 21st century responsibilities and move transformational community building initiatives forward. They might be all different, but they are all the same, just sometimes different levels. With my small community, it's a little bit different than, say, the GTA or Vancouver, and yet they're still the same issues. And so how do we work those together? Our federal municipal partnership has a strong record of achieving progress for Canadians. And I can tell you, successive governments, federal governments, have deepened their partnership with municipalities through FCM. And that is tackling pressing national challenges and strengthening Canada from coast to coast to coast. Together, we're addressing some of Canada's biggest economic, social, and environmental challenges. We've built core infrastructure, we've created jobs, we're driving growth and improving people's quality of life. We're expanding transit networks and affordable housing. We've brought high-speed internet to more rural communities. We're modernizing community and recreational centers to provide equitable opportunities for more Canadians. And I think that's an important statement, providing equitable opportunities for more Canadians. And that's what local governments and FCM deliver. Going forward, progress will require active bridge building among federal parties and among governments. That's what local governments do best. We come to the table united and ready to deliver the results.
And I think that's the big strength of Canada, is that even though municipalities themselves are creatures of the province, there is this great nationwide collaboration and cooperation that we see. And it's really exciting to see when some of our board members, including Randy Golden, come back to our board table at SUMA, and they promote kind of the great work that is being done by FCM.
From the smallest village to the biggest city, the SaskTel Innovation and Collaboration Team is everything you need to meet your emerging demands. Reach out to an account executive today to find out more. And now, back to the show.
So I want to follow up on that creatures of the province confusion that many of our municipal leaders face. Many local leaders feel like they've got a good handle on how they reach out to their MLAs and raise concerns, but they're unsure of what, if any, role their federal MP can play in their community. How can municipal leaders effectively work with the federal government to make improvements in their community?
Again, that communication piece, Sean, is vital. When we have municipal leaders that engage with FCM, that engagement is so important. As the national voice of local government, we move those national conversations forward with and across party lines. We're not parties in our order of government. We can go over those party lines. We're in constant contact with federal officials, from policy specialists to opposition parties to the Prime Minister, and with stakeholders in the public sector and the industry and civil society. We cross those lines all the time. Canadians are looking for progress that they can see and feel in their lives, especially after what we've been through, and I'm going to say it, through COVID-19, through this pandemic. We've learned a lot, we've moved forward, and that's what local governments and FCM deliver. We can go across party lines, we can go across the different issues, and we can discuss those issues, find a solution, and work together to get that solution put forward. And as you said, it doesn't matter if your MP is in the cabinet or not. We work with everyone across the board to figure out what the best solutions are to the issues that we face across the country.
I think one of the great benefits of having FCM around during the pandemic was that you provided such a great wealth of resources nationwide for different things that municipal leaders could try to be able to accommodate their kind of legislative requirements to still meet. I think going online was a huge challenge for a lot of municipal leaders across Canada, and it really presented kind of a new way to conduct local governance. So we really do appreciate what guidance FCM was able to offer, and on a personal level, working kind of within the guidance of SUMA to provide guidance and advice to our membership, it really was helpful. Going back to the cabinet piece, you did talk about how FCM does reach across party lines. In Saskatchewan, unfortunately, all of our MPs across the entire province do come from a party that is not in cabinet, which does create a couple of challenges for our members. Some of them feel like even if they do speak to their MPs, that their concerns may still go unheard in Ottawa. So do you have any specific advice on how municipal leaders should be reaching out to make sure that their voice is heard? Should be going specifically through FCM? Should they still be reaching out to their MPs to ensure that the MPs know of their local issues, or how should they go about raising concerns?
Well, SUMA is a great organization. They work very hard for every corner of your province. And I think you need to, as municipal leaders, continue to have conversations with your MPs, with the people that are in your province that are in the roles of leadership. And they work for everyone. I can give an example of in my municipality, we have 2 wards. Doesn't matter what ward you're from, the leaders at the table speak for the entire municipality. Every vote we make for everyone. So the conversation has to continue. FCM can gather all that information and work within the board to talk about every issue that Saskatchewan is facing and what the leaders in Saskatchewan are facing. So continue to bring those conversations to the FCM table, because we can talk about them there and bring them forward through our staff, through our board, through policy procedures to make sure that everyone is heard.
And so I think talking about kind of raising issues and concerns is probably a good place that we can kind of take the final note of this interview. For our final question, I just want to look forward to the future. Something we like to ask every one of our guests is, where do you see the municipal sector headed over the next 10 to 15 years across Canada? And how do you think, from a federal perspective, that Saskatchewan municipal leaders should be planning for that today?
You know, if I had a crystal ball, I could answer this even better, but I don't. So I believe that municipalities are really confronting 21st century challenges with 19th century fiscal tools. And we need to make sure that we have the tools all across the country, Saskatchewan and across, that we have to face the challenges that await us. We need federal leadership on modernizing municipalities' tools and authorities to reflect their 20th century role in the lives of Canadians. Change will take time. but we've learned a lot through this pandemic. And municipalities were, as you said, forced to change things up and pivot as we were moving forward. We were also forced to the brink of financial crisis, and that federal leadership was crucial in averting that crisis. That compelled us to accelerate the conversation. As you know, municipalities own about 60% of Canada's infrastructure. We deliver vital services and help achieve federal, social, economic, and environmental objectives. Yet they are rarely at the table when other governments discuss national challenges. With no ability to run deficits, we rely on outdated fiscal tools that, like user fees, property taxes, and other land-based tools that will continue to erode the COVID accelerated transitions to e-commerce, telework, and digitalization. We need to move forward. And I can give you an example of things that we're working on right now. So as an emergency priority, we're calling for action to ensure that municipalities are not destabilized by major new policing costs on the horizon. We need to urgently protect the sustainability of local policing by ensuring the federal government covers all retroactive costs associated with implementing the new RCMP labor relations regime. You know, if we weren't at the table, we weren't even asked what our thoughts were. So we need to ensure municipalities are properly consulted before implementing measures that impact their ability to maintain effective local services, especially the policing services. We also need to modernize RCMP contract policing program, working with municipalities to ensure it provides not only police resources, but also resources for partnership development with health and social services agencies at the local level, particularly those run by and servicing Black, Indigenous, and other racialized communities. We all need to work together. We need to elevate rural communities federally by working with FCM and municipal leaders to ensure that we use a rural lens in applying policies to federal policy development and program design, better empowering local leaders to succeed in the context of their unique local realities. We understand our local realities. We can bring them to the board. We bring them through our rural lens to our rural caucus, and we work strongly with our federal partners to make sure that our issues are heard. I can say this will be important in the years to come, especially for municipalities in Saskatchewan. And it starts, but does not end, with priorities including broadband, housing, rural mobility, regional economic development, and core infrastructure. And we haven't even touched climate crisis yet. It is a defining challenge of our time, from floods to droughts and wildfires. New weather extremes are forcing families from their homes and costing our economy billions each year in property damage and lost productivity. Local leaders play a key role in strengthening local climate resiliency. Municipalities are working hard to build those more resilient communities, but we are nowhere near the funding level communities need to protect Canadians from what's coming. So in order to face the climate crisis, we need to rapidly scale up support for disaster mitigation and climate resiliency projects, protecting communities from climate impacts. And that's right from strengthening the natural infrastructure that stabilizes landscapes and buffers climate horizons, and to continue strengthening local adaptation capacity. So those are some of the things that we're working on right now, but they will not be done overnight. We have a vision, we have pillars, we have things that we're looking forward to putting in place, and we're working with our federal partners, our provincial partners, everyone in order to get this done, to make sure that the citizens of Canada are having a bright future.
I think you're right to highlight that the challenges over the next 10 to 15 years are going to be enormous for local leaders. And, that can be really scary and imposing to someone who wants to put their name forward for nomination today. But I think you're right to say that FCM is really working to tackle these challenges. And, you've got strong partners behind you, including those at SUMA, as well as our members that are very excited to see kind of what they can do to help better the future for municipalities, whether it be on an economic, a climate, or even just an infrastructural level. I want to thank you for sitting down with us today, President Vanderheyden. It was great to talk with you. I really appreciate you taking the time, and we look forward to many more years of strong collaboration between SUMA and FCM.
As do I. Thank you so much for allowing me some time just to talk about our issues and how working united across this country really helps all of us. And I really appreciate the time that you've given me.
Well, this brings us to the end of episode 1 of season 2 of MuniCast. We sure hope you've enjoyed it, and we've got 5 more great episodes coming up for the rest of the season. We have new episodes coming out on the second Wednesday of every month until June, so stay tuned for some more great episodes, including an interview with Government Relations Minister Don McMorris, an interview with SaskTel regarding bringing broadband to your community, an interview with scholar Negan Sinclair from the University of Winnipeg around what your community can do for reconciliation, and a couple of other special guests. And now, without further ado, here's a sneak preview of our next episode with Minister of Government Relations Don McMorris.
I would say growth continues to be our kind of North Star, if you will, as a government moving forward. In fact, we've released the growth plan 2030. So that's 10 years, 9 years, I guess, left in it. And so growth really is by far the most important objective as we move forward. That's kind of that's the lens we look through on any of the decision-making processes that we talk about, both within caucus and within cabinet.